Hello everybody, Average Gamer here, and welcome to another user tutorial on Supreme Ruler Ultimate. So, in the last episode we talked about the UI in general, what all the things are here on the UI. The next thing we're going to talk about is these buttons here, what each one of them does and what it is. So this episode specifically is going to be firstly on the land the land button here. So the land button basically gives you any information associated with the quote-unquote land. So for example, we're going to pick and click on our capital here. So first thing you'll notice is it gives you the name of the location, if the location has a name. So for example, we clicked on our capital, Beijing. So it gave the name, Beijing. If we click on this town here, it gives us the name of whatever. If we click in the middle of nowhere, it gives us the X and the Y coordinates of the location. So usually in this case, that's for locations like this, like when you build industrial complexes, which we'll get into a little later. When you go to build your industry in generalized locations, not in towns, you get the X and Y coordinates of it. Now, also what you can do, we're going to click back on our capital here, is it also tells you generally where it is. So in this case, it's in Northeast Asia. If you click down here, Southeast Asia. Now, the reason why the game actually comes up with these little ideas, Central Asia, Northeast Asia, Northeast Asia, Oceania. Now, how it does that, I believe, is, the battle zones, is right here. So, when you see this name here, that's what theater of war it's in. It's not quite what area the continent it's on, it's what theater of war. So you have to remember that. The reason why you have to remember that later on is when you go to repair buildings and things like that, which we'll get into when we get into war. So what else do we get on the screen? Well, we're going to click something else here. So it'll show you the country that it's associated with. So here we have, obviously, the China flag is our China. Here, if we click here, for example, we get the North Korean flag, the South Korean flag, the Mongolian flag, the Soviet flag. Now, it'll show you the general population of that area. So even if you click on an area that looks like there's nothing there, like here that looks like it's a railroad and some trees, we have a population of 70,000 in that general 16-kilometer area, which is pretty good. As well, it shows you the amount of supply in the area. Later on, you can increase the supply in said area, which we'll get into when we get into the military tab. So right now, telling us the supply, if a military unit is in this location, that specific block, they'll be supplied 17%. So that's food, water, fuel, things like that. They'll only be supplied a maximum of 17%. Then here it shows you what kind of transportation or what kind of infrastructure there is. So in this case, we have rail. If you click whatever town this is here, we'll have rail and road. It shows right now with the black sun that it's currently clear, and it's daytime. And here it's the ground itself is dry and normal. If we click on this one, it's still dry and normal. If we click this, all of a sudden it becomes high ground, because there's a little bit of a mountain there if you look. Next up, on the buttons here on the right. Well, actually, let's talk about these things here real quick, and which ones they are. So for example, you can actually click on one of your buildings and make up some information on it. So for example, you can set a rally point because we have a barracks. Now a barracks is where you store your troops. So you can actually tell, okay, all my troops, if they're stationed here, when I hit the button and they all go active, I want them all to rally in a specific location. So we have a barracks down here. We can say, okay, all these units, because we're worried about our invasion, getting invaded from, I don't know, from the Soviet Union. Whenever we go active, all our military units from this location go there. If you click here, do the same thing. I want all my military units to go there. So now every time you click on that location, it will show you where those units are going to rally to when they get called up. Then you have things like consumer goods, airports, and towns and villages, and cities and things like that. We'll get more into detail into what each of these ones are when we get into the resource section, which that alone is going to take like a couple parts. But what you can do to filter through different pages and things like that, or different towns. It's quite simple. So, say for example, we want to know where our next barracks is on our list here. So you click the barracks, then click away from the barracks. I know it sounds weird. So you click the barracks and then just click somewhere over here. Then you have one of these arrows up here. You can actually click the arrow and filter. See, here's another barracks right there to the next town. Pretty nice feature when you're doing things with industry, and which we'll get into later on, where you can go through and see where all your certain buildings are of certain types, so you can deactivate them or make sure they're all active. Now, these 7 buttons here, we're going to go from the bottom up. So this first one is your satellite button. You have communication satellites, reconnaissance satellites, and defense satellites, which right now you don't have the ability to do any, but it would give you 3 options here. First one is to build, and it will show you down below how many you're building in the progress bar. Then the ability to launch. It does that for all 3. What communication satellites do is pretty much nothing. It's supposed to help like the back end part of the game when you're playing yourself. It's for people, right? So for satellite television and things like that, I usually only launch like 6 satellites, to be honest with you, or I just go to 100% global coverage. I haven't seen any real point of communication satellites just yet, because I mean you control the military yourself, so there's no lag in units as the further away they go, or anything like that. Reconnaissance. Now this is a little different. So reconnaissance satellites, the more you have in orbit, the more you see of enemy units around the world. In my current personal game, I have 100% coverage around the world, and I can see every military unit in the entire world at any time. I just pick a country, and you literally can just go over to it, zoom in, and I can... What the hell is that? Sarlan. Okay, that's... Or we're doing 1940... Yeah, we're doing 1949. Okay. Thought Sarlan was actually all of this. Interesting. Or at least this part. Oh well. But yeah, you can zoom into any country and you'll be able to see their units, which is what I think was really nice. Last but not least, missile defense. This one later on in the end game is actually very important. For example, if you're fighting a war, you can actually fight global wars by the 80s. For example, as the U.S., you can fight wars in Vietnam, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, South America, you name it. Any country can fight anywhere in the world as long as it's within your sphere of influence, basically. And by the 1980s, pretty much everything is in your sphere of influence. Now, the missile defense, what you can do with missile defense is actually very interesting. With missile defense, it actually will fire missiles from orbit and shoot down missiles that are being fired at you. It takes a certain time for them to track the missiles, but in the end, it will shoot down missiles. So, for example, say the U.S. is firing cruise missiles from the U.S. to Europe. Say they're at war with England, and they're firing cruise missiles from the land. Or they're firing some sort of missile from continental U.S. towards England. The missile defense system will actually shoot down the missiles, or you'll see the missiles constantly getting hit as they get closer and closer to the target, until there is a chance that the missile could get shot down, which is pretty good. Next up is your theater controls. So your theater controls are basically this. You have multiple different theaters in the world. We're going to bring those up right now. That when you fight a war, you fight the war in. So for example, most of China is right here. We're in Southeast Asia. Now there's, Northeast Asia, and we're also kind of to a point in Central Asia. Now, what you can do is you can set your military priority. Now, most of this will work specifically if you have your AI on. If not, most of this will not work. So you can set your military priority to high, meaning that your units, when your computer or your AI controlled units decide, okay, I'm going to start positioning troops somewhere. If you have one section set to high, they will actually mass or slowly, in which case, move to those locations, and they'll maximize that area first. So if we went to high, say for example right now, on say Central Asia, the AI would first mass troops in this general area, and all these little towns and villages here. It would position troops here first. We'll put diplomacy to aggressive offers. Everyone will start getting offers in this general area, in this theater of war, for everything, for whatever you've told your AI to get to do. So if you told it to do trade offers and all that stuff, you can actually become like the way it's set up is basically the game is set almost as a sphere of influence system where you can actually set up your sphere of influence to do things. So for me, I always start off down here, and as China, I always start off in Southeast Asia. Always Southeast Asia, just kind of stay Southeast Asia for a while. Sometimes, Northeast Asia, for example, but, these two are the ones I usually use. And what happens is you set most things up, your diplomatic focus and your espionage, so basically how much you want to spy. Do you want to go aggressively? Do you want to go moderate spy? Do you want to not do any spying? And what will happen is the AI will send out spies to, Japan, both Koreas, all these countries down here, collect information, do recon, do espionage, do all this stuff for you. It's a good way to automate, to kind of get your influence up in the area. You can also go later on to your actual diplomatic attaché or your minister of diplomacy, and or basically it's kind of like an ambassador. And what they will do is they'll actually go and discuss things with people and be like, hey, usually 1 ton of oil is $10, but for you it's gonna be 1 ton of oil for for 110. Or it'll be aggressive in the fact that it'll be giving people offers that they can't refuse. Like, here's the deal: I'll give you 100 tons of oil for $10. Doing things to influence everyone in the area and all that stuff. Espionage, if you're aggressively using espionage, say in Southeast Asia, we're gonna have spies everywhere, doing all sorts of things. Recon. Then we'll also be doing. It's recon, espionage, and something else. Recon, espionage, and sabotage. So you'll be sabotaging facilities and units being created. You'll also be reconning enemy positions and military defenses. Espionage, you'll be trying to steal their technology, which is pretty fun. Then we have battle zones. So this is more of a when you're actually fighting a war. I will tell you now, this can get really fucking confusing. Because as you can see, China alone, we're broken up into what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't know. We're broken up into 13 or 14 separate zones. And you're probably thinking to yourself, holy shit. To be 100% honest with you, I don't often use this. I will only use this if I'm playing at a country, for example, that's less than a theater of war, or if I know something's going to happen. So, for example, as China, if we wanted to go to war with Korea, or say Taiwan, we know we don't have to worry about, say Taiwan. We know we don't have to worry about all the countries down here or anyone around anywhere. We know we just have to worry about Taiwan. So you can actually go instead to. Sorry, but that yawned a little bit. So instead of going to your battle your theater controls, or even right clicking and going to theater control, you don't have to sit there and set it up so that the troops go all over the place. You can actually go into battle zone and look, be like, okay, well, battle zone, Fuzon here is the only area close. So let's pick that one. So you click it, and you do... What the hell did I just do to them? Oh, we don't want those on. Oh, I didn't realize I turned the hex on. I'm gonna have to turn that off on in the next video. There we go. I didn't remember how to turn that off. But yeah, so you can actually set up your battle force just to set up around here, and in the area around Taiwan. So basically, our military forces will be mostly centralized there, which is pretty good. And as I said before, and I forgot to mention, you can right-click in an area, click the battle zone, or also click in an area and go to theater control. Now, one of the things that is really good about theater control is, for example, in these locations here, so all three of them, you can actually tell the AI to maximize the garrisons in the theater and repair everything. During war or even after a war, it's very imperative that you go into this screen no matter what and tell it to repair. That way it will automatically repair everything in that area. Many times I've gone to war and forgotten to do this. And as time progressed, I was trying to figure out why I wasn't making as much money as I should be, why my resources were not as high as they would be. And I found out that once I had control over pretty much everything east of the Caspian Sea, and I mean everything, even Australia, Japan, everything, I was trying to figure out why my resources were so dwindled, why I wasn't making that much. And then I realized in another playthrough that I had to go in and repair everything as you go. So always remember that. Next option is hotspots. The hotspots are where you can actually set up specific spots where your military, like the actual armies themselves, are going to make massive priorities associated with a battle zone or a theater of war. So for example, we can set this up as a hotspot by clicking this button here. We can say this is how big we want the military force to be in this area. So we want them to be very heavy, moderate, whatever. We can say how much of an air support we want in the location. Do we want heavy air support? Moderate air support. We'll say, do we want the military forces in this area or this hotspot to be offensive, defensive, or balanced? Then what actions do we want them to do? Do we want them to do just attack, battle support, sea attack, sea supply, land transport, air support, supplies, assist, defense, and garrison? And last but not least, what's the priority of this specific hotspot? Now, one thing I like about this is you can actually set up a good defensive position if you know you're going to be going to war with someone. Unfortunately, the larger the country, the larger you become, the harder it is going to be set up things like hotspots. So one thing you always can do is use the theater operations and just say, you know what, I want maximum high priority. Militaries, I want them to be defensive, and I want you to do this, and I want you to do that for me. Now when you zoom in, it should automatically create some hotspots for you. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It kind of depends on the situation. Oh, offensive. Or it won't, whatever. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it won't. Oh, do I have to do it in battle zone? Yeah. Either way, usually what I'll do for hotspots is if I know I'm going to be fighting a big war somewhere, or a little war, I'll use hotspots, just so I can kind of manage my troops a little bit better. But to be honest with you, battle zone, when it comes to hotspots, you don't really use them that much. The AI will give you automatic ones. Facilities and complexes, this just shows you where all your facilities are. So for example, if we click facility of complexes, we go through, say, land. So right now we have one Beijing Academy. We'll double click it, it's going to show us where it is. That's based on our spies. Resources, well, let's go to electric power. When you click electric power, it shows you everything that you have. It also tells you where it is. Now you can also set it to say, well, I want to know just which ones are offline. Nothing are offline? Good. You can set it to science complexes. You can set it to defense production. Usually I have it set to all filters no matter what. So research, we have 2 research facilities. For defense production, we've got multiple different facilities, tons of barracks, landing facilities. You're pretty much hardly ever going to use this. 9 times out of 10, the only thing you want to do is show offline. It'll show you whatever ones are not up, that don't have enough troops. You can double click them, and then activate them. You'll see a little sign there. Now this should show, what is this? Oh, this was our defense company. See, boom. Now we can actually click it. It would show us where it is. We would click the location here, click, and activate. The only time that'll happen to you is if you don't have enough troops to station it or man it. Next is our unit presence. So right now in this unit here specifically, we only have a spy. If we click this location here, no units. No units whatsoever. No units whatsoever. The only time you'll do this usually is if you have a massive stack of troops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy. Let's go with you guys, because you're quick and fast. Hey, everyone's just going to go to this building real quick here. Oh, do I have the AI set to control the military? I do. Okay. Well, on the right side there's 2 units here now, so what'll happen is you can click the unit presence and you can click it, and right now it's going to show us, when we click it here, we've got a M4A1 Sherman tank and a mounted infantry unit. You can also just hold your mouse over it and it'll show you the exact same info that you can see on our left page here. Now you'll notice down here, it shows you how much garrison units are in there as well, and what the tile is. So down here, it'll also show you that it's light forest, here, light forest, here, it's a lake, here, light forest, plains, light forest, but then you'll notice it's got a little button down, a little icon down there at the bottom. That's for mountain, for high ground. What's this? Oh, close combat, low visibility location, things like that. Next one is obviously strategic targeting. So, strategic targeting is specifically for nuclear war. So, you had available platforms. They would show up here. So, in this case, most of these will be like Scud launchers, Patriot launchers, things like that. Aircraft would be most likely strategic bombers, like your B-2 Spirit, your B-29 bombers, your B-52s, your Tupolev Bears, your Comets, Nimrods, all sorts of aircraft basically that can carry bomb, like a nuclear bomb of some form. Most platforms for the Navy are that can carry nuclear weapons are 9 times out of 10 subs. You can also get some destroyers and cruisers that can have nuclear weapons on them, not many. Then here we'll show you, and then silos is also kind of just doesn't even show up on here, mind you, because we don't have the technology for it. But what will happen is it will show you, when you click on, for example, land, it will say Scud Launcher. You click Scud Launcher, on the right, it will show you how many you've assigned to the pool for strategic targeting for nuclear weapons. So you can actually click this moves 1 unit over to the pool for strategic units, and that unit then removes itself out of your actual pool of or your reserves. Or you can put them all over there by pressing this button here. I usually just do all of them just to make it easier. Then down here it'll show you the missiles available. So say we went to land launch, it would show us, shit, I'm trying to remember what name of one, like the Minuteman. Nuclear missile used in the 70s by the Americans. You can click on land launch. It would show you all the different types of land launch. It would show you the Scalpel, the Turple, the Trident if you have it, the Minuteman, the Trident II. It would show you all the different missiles in all the different sections. It would say, available missiles like 4, 8, 3, 2. When you have a number here, that just means how many types of missiles are available. When you actually click the launch available type, so air launch, for example, or even sub launch or silo launch, it will then show you how many of those 4 you have available of each one, which is pretty good. I like it. It's very in depth. Then what you can do is pick how many missiles you want to be assigned to the units above in the assigned platform, which I like. So you go land, and then you move over a couple missiles, or you move over them all. Here you pick your target as to who you want to attack. So you'll notice on the map, if we One of the best ways to do this, zoom out, click the button first, and then hover over it. Now, you'll notice that we can't see some of this stuff. So I'm going to try and pick Europe. Middle East, we can't see. Central America, we can't see. Eastern North America, we can't see. Southern Africa, I'm pointing so you look here and you'll see it light up. Northeast Asia, that'll light up. Southeast Asia, doesn't light up. Central Oceania should light up where Australia is on our right. There it is. Northwest Africa, boom, lights up. Western Europe, boom. Central Europe, Eastern Europe, Northern South America, Southern South America, North Atlantic, boom, South Atlantic. So here you can also just it shows you who has the most influence. It also shows you how many countries are in the territory, how many capitals are in the area, how many colonies, and how many regions, which is pretty good. South Pacific, Indian Ocean, Northern Europe. I thought North America was in here. Eastern North America is only in here? Well, that's, So, mental note. You can't do a nuclear strike on the western coast of the United States. It's only the eastern coast you can nuke. What is this theater called? Well, see, there we go. It actually set up hotspots for us when you set up your thing there. Western North America, yeah. We're gonna go back to nukes again. Western Europe. Northern Europe. Wow. Okay, so Canada and the US have an immediate thing built into them where you can't nuke them on the western part of their countries. Even though the Americans have, like Maelstrom, for example, their missiles, all where all their silos are in Montana, or is in the western part of the country. Interesting. Okay, well, you would pick your target. So, for example, we're going to pick Western Europe, and then you can pick a country. So we're going to pick Portugal, which is right here. So there we go. Now, after we had assigned our units, we had assigned our missiles, we would pick how much of the percentage. Do we want 100% of our missiles to go at Portugal? 75%, 50%, or 25%? And it will show you generally how many units you can launch. And then you hit the button. And it would... Oh, shit. Now, just so you know, when you hit the button, it automatically declares war. No matter what. We don't have any units. So somehow, via a bug, we can do a strategic attack on Portugal, even though we don't have the ability to actually do anything about it. But that is fuck. So that is the last tab. In the next episode, we're going to talk about the state tab. So you have right here, for example, as China, our head of state is Mao Zedong, but our cabinet minister is Frank Tomlinson. It's very Asian. It's very Asian of us. Mr. Frank Tomlinson.